Hi, Maxi.
Max. Hi,
Happy New Year. How are you?
same to you. Fine.
Thanks. Tom found the link. Perfect.
Yeah. So
Maxim, is there more than one presentation today?
I think we just have one, maybe, but John was organizing it. I was kind of not following so closely.
Hi, I looked at the agenda. I think David Frey from Michigan is also presenting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, that makes sense.
He has this looping star acquisition that I think
Yes.
he's talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Very
we
cool.
typically like to have two, but I honestly, I'm just in of since 3 days. In Germany, it's typical that at least in South Germany. I know it's 6th of January is a public holiday, so already and also the school break goes until 6th of January. So uh, I was just coming back, and then we had some visitors in the lab and spent a lot of time at the scanner. Basically, was not in the office at all. And today we had some collaboration call with Siemens, trying to install some stuff on our scanner, and I just basically rushed in 3 minutes ago into the office, connected my laptop, and so basically I haven't seen my emails properly since end of December. So I don't know what happened in the rest of the world, and also today's meeting is a little bit spontaneous for me. So it happened so. But I'll see. Oh well, John certainly wanted to be in today.
Very cool. There he is.
Oh, yeah, he's now taking over. Hi, John.
Hey there.
Hi, John.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
Hey.
Hey there.
Hello.
Hey.
So, any of you guys going to Sedona?
I'm not.
Okay.
Are you going?
Yep.
Okay, good.
But basically, flying there and back. So I'll go there on Sunday, travel the whole day to arrive more or less at shortly before midnight, and then I'm leaving back Wednesday
Hello.
after the meeting. Hi, Yogesh.
Hello.
How
Hi.
well?
Hey.
Hey,
Happy New Year
Hello.
to
Happy
everyone.
New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Hi everyone, Happy New Year.
Hi.
How are things, Maxime?
I was just saying that basically, it's customary in South Germany to take vacation up until 6th of January. So I'm in the office in 3 days, but I had two extended dates at the scanner, basically spending the whole day at the scanner with either some guests or with Siemens trying to install something. So I actually don't know how things are. What about yourselves?
Good, good. Going okay. Going through, some sort of weird news always coming through the NIH. So
Oh, well.
we'll see. Yeah.
to ask, so for those who have signed up for the mailing list, did you receive the announcement? I just want to make sure that everyone is getting an announcement.
I mean, did you send today or this is previously? That's how I think it went to
I
my
think I
desk.
sent it a couple of days ago to the research. Let's see, what's it called?
Yeah, I don't
Research
think I got
Research
I don't think I got a separate invitation for this one, or it might have slipped through, but I didn't. I thought I had signed up and I didn't get a separate one.
I think
Okay.
it's the same for me, right? So
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, I think we maybe want to revisit that a little bit down the mailing list. I'm not 100% sure that that's working
so
as
maybe
it
it's not
should.
working, right? So because
Okay. Because I think we have like about 75 registrants now on the Zoom. And unfortunately, there's no like easy way to email everyone. But I can at least send a reminder kind of manually. I think I can do that in the future. So, but let's add that as an item to either verify or figure out what's going on with the mailing list. All right.
yeah, I think Birkins has set up it somehow and did some testing, but I don't remember receiving anything from the mailing list. So
Okay. Okay, Alan says he did get an email. Okay, hopefully. All right.
well, I did get an email today from Zoom or from you basically via Zoom, but not
Oh, you did?
user group meeting. I get the email from you end of the year, but I don't see anything from the mailing list.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to do some testing.
Okay. The other thing I want to say, so the next meeting is February 6th, a good day for everyone. We're trying to do this at the beginning of every month.
Yeah,
So if
sounds
that
good.
works, let's aim for that. And we have, I believe we have one speaker, so we need one more speaker. So if you know anyone or want to suggest someone, you can do it either now or, email any of us. That'd be great. That's all I had. Anything else, Maxime?
Well, maybe advertise the SMRM webinar, right? The workshop.
Yes. So,
And for that, I think we're looking for or we will have to complete the program. I think we have a good picture of it, but we have to finalize it in the coming days.
right. So maybe should we do that by email maybe?
Yes.
But if so that's it'll be a webinar next month. And so if you'd like to present or know someone to present, you can basically nominate yourself. And that'll be a good chance to get to work out. It'll be similar to the one that we did just over 2 years ago, the virtual webinar. So it's a pretty good format. It's ISMRM virtual meeting, and it'll be
Virtual meetings. I'm looking for the. I'll paste the link.
Yeah.
I just found out that it's going to be a Chinese New Year, so I will probably be short on the contributions and also on the participants from China, but
okay.
just happens so.
Let's do that.
Oh, it's so ours is still not online, so we have to. I don't actually see it. Yeah, so we'll finish that and circulate
Yeah.
the list. Right, it's I think 19th, 20th, 21st of February.
I mean the dates.
Yep. In that range.
It was the 18th to the 20th, I think. I have to look at.
18th, okay.
I think it was 3 days. No,
Yep.
not. Yeah. I think that's what we said, 18th to the 20th, but I'll check that. Okay. So yeah, so we have two presenters today. So David Frey is going to talk about silent fMRI, the looping star, and then Max Graham will talk about MRF. So if there's nothing else, I'll give the word to David, and then if there's time at the end, as usual, we can talk about any topic that I want to bring up, technical issues or whatever you want. Okay, David, go ahead.
Okay. Share my screen.
Oh, I'm going to start recording, if that's okay.
Yep.
Oh no, it is recording. Okay, great.
Okay. Do you see the presentation, or is it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is David, and I work at University of Michigan fMRI lab with Doug Knoll and sometimes with John on pulse sequence programming. So today I'm going to be presenting my framework for looping star sequence in Pulseq. So looping star is a silent TT star weighted sequence that was originally developed by Florian Weisinger at GE. And it was originally developed only on GE platforms using Epic. So for lots of reasons, I wanted to extend it to Pulseq in order to better perform some development work with the sequence. So yeah, first I'm just going to go over brief theory around the looping star sequence to catch us all up. So the looping star sequence is based on zero echo time. So in zero echo time, we basically ramp up the gradients before we excite, and then we excite some spins and let them dephase past the outer edge of k-space. So this is kind of like a nominal k-max defined by this green circle on the right. And then once we've dephased our spins enough, we can actually excite more spins in parallel and have them all dephase kind of sequentially out past those bounds in k-space. And we can see that, like, by the way that we've designed our sequence here, we see this first spoke kind of making its way back into the nominal resolution sampling region. And this is because if we zoom out, so also we can acquire that whole time that we're dephasing and get a nice zero echo time weighted image too from all these spokes. But the nice thing is that we see all of these populations of spins are kind of following a closed loop trajectory in k-space. So after we've excited them all and keep our gradients on, we can actually start to bring them all back in and record gradient echo signals from each of them. So we can see that the first spoke kind of made its way back in, hits the center of K-space, dephases to get what we call a spoke out. And then if we just continue that sequence on, we can do that for all of the different spokes kind of in parallel. This is a super efficient way to basically encode T2 star weighted data. And so from this, we get both zero echo time or FID weighted images and also a gradient echo image. And then we can keep continuing that too to get multi-echo data as well by just simply continuing on the sequence. So then we get our original FID images, we get one GRE image, and then we also get a second echo time as well. And then really the most time efficient way to do this is not to use these trapezoidal pulses, but instead use sinusoidal gradient waveforms. So in this, we're keeping our slew rate at a minimum and basically doing the same sequence. And then all of our spokes are following this circular trajectory instead. And we get this super nice star-shaped trajectory in the center of K-space that we're encoding. And the magic of this kind of comes in where we have this balance between max gradient amplitude, the echo time, and our spatial encoding. And if we choose our parameters right, this slew rate can be very, very low to the point where the sequence is silent. And we still have this like really efficient encoding of K-space with reasonable echo times for any sort of bold weighted imaging or T2 star sequences that you want to acquire. So what I've shown here is only 2D K-space trajectory, but because we have gradients on while we're playing these RF pulses, we have to make them really short so that we don't have these strange banding artifacts. So we're pretty much limited to 3D excitations only. So in this case, because it's an inherently 3D sequence, we have to encode 3D K-space somehow. That's actually super easy. All we have to do is apply some rotation matrices in 3D, and we can basically encode a sphere in K-space over time. So on top, I'm showing basically the dynamic signal that we're trying to record in the image, and then we just have this time series of rotating planes that will give us a bunch of spheres. And recently, too, Pulseq had this update. Thank you to Maxime, where it supported rotation matrices. So this has actually been super helpful for us and having just a bunch of arbitrary rotations. So yeah, just kind of a overview of some of the experimental results from this. Basically, in this original looping star fMRI paper from Florian Weisinger's group again, we saw basically when comparing gradient echo EPI to looping star, we see a 35 decibel reduction in acoustic noise. So it's basically silent compared to very much not silent. And as a trade-off, we basically have a reduction in some TSNR and bold sensitivity. But this is all keeping the same spatial resolution and TR. So we actually achieved pretty good results considering the fact that we can be near silent with the sequence. So yeah, so as I mentioned before, looping star is only available in product sequences on GE scanners, and it has a lot of limitations, mainly the fact that epic programming is pretty difficult, and if we want to hand down sequences and do development work, it's pretty difficult to actually make changes to the sequence and update it over time. But also it'd be really nice to make the sequence vendor agnostic so that we can run sequences on other platforms. So a lot of the advantages that this presents is the fact that it's vendor agnostic. And I say in theory because I haven't actually developed it for other platforms yet, but that's definitely on the on the agenda. It's easier to implement for research needs. So we test a lot of different research questions in this. Even just things like changing those rotations is something that's very difficult to control on the product sequence, but we can do that super easily in MATLAB code with Pulseq. There's also a lot of bookkeeping. We're keeping track of the signal from like all these different spokes in K-space at a single time. So having that in MATLAB code and having easily readable code is really helpful here. And also the last thing is on the GE sequence, since programming these gradient waveforms is pretty complicated, we also, I think most of their gradient waveforms are based on those trapezoids, which are smoothed out. But in MATLAB, we can have pretty good arbitrary waveforms. So this is making it a lot easier to have truly sinusoidal waveforms. Yeah, so this looping star pulse sequence is available on my GitHub, and I have the link down at the bottom. But it's not quite where I want it to be yet. I have a lot of future work to do. So at the top of the list, I would say, is developing this for Siemens. So I have done most of the work just to get it running, but it's a little hard to do a lot of the development work because in our lab we only have GE scanners. So right now I'm kind of having a hard time actually like loading in the data and reading it and getting meaningful recon results out of that. So definitely looking for help if anyone is interested in trying to get that working for Siemens. And then there are a bunch of features that I would like to implement soon. One of them being the getting those zero echo time acquisitions working. So this is kind of limited by the fact that I think the interpreter doesn't support zero echo time yet. There's still a lot of spacing between RF and acquisition blocks. So that's something that I know John and a bunch of others have been looking into getting working. I'm also working on getting multiple gradient echoes, and that's kind of should be completed pretty soon. Answering a bunch of research questions around advanced trajectories, so not necessarily like always this circle, but we can encode some way in the z-plane as well, or the z-axis as well. And then last thing is, I know at one of the previous meetings, there was a question about 2D looping star. And as I kind of presented earlier, we don't actually have 2D looping star technically. It is inherently a 3D sequence. But I did have some ideas for kind of just putting an outer volume suppression pulse in front of the readout so that we have like an effectively 2D sequence, which can help us like, shrink our TR enough where it'd be easier to process and we can go a little bit faster doing 2D imaging. So that's all kind of just on the agenda to figure out. And then last thing is just, there's a lot of plans I have for updating notation and documentation, but I do have a pretty good overview of how to use the sequence and like how to run everything and do your reconstructions and stuff on that GitHub page. So but yeah, that's all I have today. So thank you guys for listening and hope you check it out.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Any questions for David?
Can I ask a couple of random questions? Thanks, David. I think it's a great talk.
Yeah, of course.
What's the motivation for the zero TE or short TE, given that, for bold sensitivity, you want to be TE around T2 star, ideally?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's a couple of points of motivation. So even for bold imaging, I think acquiring that zero echo time image alongside later gradient echoes would help us kind of get better quantitative like T2 star maps. I think that would be kind of cool to be able to fit the zero echo time signal or fit that with the zero echo time signal too. But then also other reasons I think for acquiring it are like kind of getting navigator signals for motion correction and other things that we think would be better to do with zero echo time weighted signal.
So in your case, do you get multiple echoes or it's like a composite single echo? Or you combine these multiple pathways?
So I think, well, right now my sequence, we're only acquiring the first gradient echo. So that's part of something I want to do later is get later echoes as well. I'm not as familiar with multi-echo, but I think in other works using looping star with multi-echo, I'm pretty sure they combine it using I forget the package name, but it's some multi-echo processing data where they combine the echoes.
Yeah, people do like multi-echo fMRI for like getting bold versus non-bold.
Yeah, so
analysis.
the good reasons to do that's actually why also you could use zero TE because zero TE will have all the motion artifacts, but will have no bold. Actually, there are also some people claiming that the T1 weighted like signal also can have activation, but non-bold activation. That's totally different story. I have a question. I experimented with a very similar sequence, I think maybe 10 years ago or 15. I know I'm old gray. But it was interesting because I was focusing on a 2D sequence and I thought it's going to be quiet, but I forgotten about the slice selection gradient, which was a disaster. It was basically one of the loudest sequences I ever programmed. But because it was like similar concept of like having different slices sent on this circular pass, independent passes, right? But
Yeah.
I was independently like refocusing and dephasing slices and whatever, and those basically ramping all the gradient, doing the slice selection, ramping the gradient up again. That was basically the noisiest part of it. But with that sequence, what I noticed that also I actually had relatively little signal because I was creating a lot of diffusion weighting. So all those echoes which kind of travel on this path, they actually experience a lot of gradient. And that's although you refocus things after that, the sequence was relatively heavily diffusion weighted.
Yeah.
So, but but again, I use many slices, so I don't know. Do you notice this in your images that that you have this intrinsic diffusion weighting, and if yes, what do you do about it?
I don't think I've noticed that in the sequence. Maybe the gradient amplitude is low enough where we don't get that high amplitudes, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I haven't seen it personally, but yeah, maybe it was from the later slice select gradients that you were getting the
No, it was so my interpretation was that, but again, I use many slices and I aimed at a relatively high resolution, so I wanted to be better than the PI, and then my overall excursion and case space was like really multiple typical case space excursions.
Yeah.
And also multiplied by the relatively long evolution time. So I don't know, I don't remember what it was, but the diffusion weighting was substantial. I kind of estimated it back then. But so probably the trick is that how many, well, not slices the same volume, but how many excitations do you actually do before you refocus the first one?
So I think the number that we've been using is around 23 spokes.
Okay.
I mean, echo time around 32 milliseconds. So
okay. And the resolution is what is the spatial resolution that you aiming at typically?
Yeah, the spatial resolution for fMRI is pretty pretty low, or pretty pretty low. It's around 3 millimeters that we're
Okay. Okay.
nominally, but we also do sometimes acquire structural images. And I will say, like, as the resolution gets higher, we definitely run into a lot more unknown issues. We have to play a much more careful balance between the gradient amplitude and the number of spokes, because we'll also get banding artifacts and stuff. So
Okay.
so yeah, I haven't looked into diffusion weighting, but I'm now that you say it, yeah, I'm sure that would also be something we could be concerned about when we ramp up.
Well, but I mean, I think it's important to be aware of it, and then you may sell it as the intrinsic diffusion weighting, and maybe somebody will find it useful. So,
oh yeah, there you go.
Right. What's artifact for one is the benefit for the other. So that's
right. Yeah. Good point.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
You say just a quick one. So, what exactly is the status of the CMS development? Is it is it more looking for help, like collecting the data, or have someone try it out, or is it more in the design of the Pulseq file, or where's that?
I think the Pulseq file is okay, because like last couple times it's ran really well, and looks very similar to the GE sequence. The status right now is I have data acquired from a Siemens scanner, but when I go to reconstruct it, it's doesn't really look like what I want it to look like. It's not an image. And so, when I'm sitting down at the GE scanners in our lab, it's very easy to just like run something, reconstruct it, go back to it, and run it again and until I get it right. But since we don't have that time available on Siemens, it'd be kind of nice to, if anyone's interested in looping star, to be able to kind of put that time into it. But yeah, so it's more on reading it in and reconstructing right now, actually.
Okay, good. Yeah, that seems like something that someone could help with user access.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I think we should let Max get started. So we'll talk about MR fingerprinting with Pulseq. So go ahead.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
It's thinking.
Sorry,
Yep.
Can you see it? Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. My name is Max, and I'm from Würzburg, working at the University Hospital and EP group. And together with Tom Griesler, we developed a tool which is called OpenMRF. So our main goal is to have a modular and vendor-neutral open source framework, which can be used completely in Pulseq for magnetic resonance fingerprinting. And you can find our project on the Harmonized MRI GitHub webpage and on our link for OpenMRF. And first of all, because before I go into the details of our framework, I will try to explain MRF in a nutshell, how it works. I know this will be complicated. I cannot completely explain MRF, but the basics were already published about 10 years ago in Dan Ma's famous Nature paper. And as you can see, the basic sequence of a fingerprinting sequence is very simple. For example, you use a balanced FISP sequence. And the only thing which is special for MRF is we use arbitrary flip angles, so variable flip angles and repetition times. So we don't have a steady state sequence, but a sequence which keeps the signal in a transient state. And typically, and that's the same today, we use spiral out readouts. So very fast and efficient readouts to cover a k-space. And what we do then is we simply reconstruct the data from each TR with a brute force sniffed reconstruction, for example. And that's not really possible because the data are highly undersampled. So we don't expect to get a good image. And instead, we simulate the whole sequence and for very many T1 and T2 combinations, for example. And in the end, we try to match the corrupted and the artifact signals with the dictionary, and we match the physical properties like T1 and T2. So in principle, what the MRF paper 10 years ago or promised was that MRF is a simple concept and it's easy to implement. The only thing you need is something like a balanced FISP sequence and a brute force reconstruction. And also, of course, this was only the beginning of a long journey. And if we look now in the present, how MRF is used today, this is a measurement of Tom Griesler. We see that MRF can do much more than just measuring T1, T2. We can match very, very many different physical parameters like T2 star, the T1 row time, the PDFF fat fraction. There are also frameworks for measuring diffusion and things like that. And yeah, the take-home message is today, I think MRF is not simple anymore, and it's not really easy to implement. And it's also still a lot of work. So our goal for OpenMRF was to get an end-to-end solution, because at the moment, MRF is powerful, but there are only fragmented implementations. And if you look in some frameworks, you will see that the signal simulator toolboxes are mostly hard-coded, which means authors publish a paper and they have a specific simulator for their sequence with specific timings and preparations and so on. So the simulators are mostly tailored to a specific sequence, and there's a limited availability of reconstruction code. Of course, the brute force NUFT reconstruction, which was used 10 years ago, is easy to use, but today we use more advanced reconstructions like low rank, for example. And also most implementations are vendor specific. So that's the basic motivation for our toolbox. We want to get a Pulseq-based end-to-end solution, which is freely available. And now I will try to explain the whole framework with a few illustrations. So what we did is we thought about building MRF building blocks in a modular way, which means you can create your readouts like spirals, also radial or rosette, something like this, and you can combine it with different preparations. You can change the spoiling mode and everything. So you have a large toolbox based on Pulseq where you can merge your sequence however you want. And in the end, we simply use Maxim's Pulseq implementation to create sequence files. And what's also special about OpenMRF, we automatically create a second sequence file for calibrating the case-based trajectory calibration, because most MRF sequences use non-Cartesian MRI acquisition. So that's really important to have a calibration scan. And what we also developed is we have a new concept of handling metadata, because most of you noted that if you run a Pulseq sequence on your scanner, your measurement data will not contain any sequence parameters which are really interesting. And what we did is, if you create a sequence file, we also create backup data which contain sequence parameters and everything. That's fully automatically done. And you can take your sequence files created with OpenMRF, take them to a scanner, whatever scanner you have, and run your sequences. And then the interesting part about MRF starts, because we don't have a simulator which is tailored to one sequence. Instead, we do something very similar to the MR0 concept. We analyze the whole sequence file once again, and we create a list of instructions how to simulate that sequence. The big difference compared to MR0 is, in MR0, the aim is more to simulate the whole MRI signal and to simulate the signal of a digital phantom. And what we do is we simulate the signal of the case-based center, but we can model a lot of physical conditions like adiabatic pulses. Also, spin locking is detected to automatically model T1 row. We can model the slice profile effect and so on. And you can choose between Bloch simulations and EPG simulations to do that. And in the end, you have your dictionary. And that's something which is done mostly in all modern MRF implementations. We do a subspace compression, which means we compress the MRF dictionary along the TR dimension to reduce memory and to be more efficient for the reconstruction. And then we start with the reconstruction part. So you take both your trajectory and MRF raw data code. And our reconstruction pipeline takes both data types. And together with the instruction of the subspace compression, we can compress the raw data. We can also automatically estimate the coil maps, for example, and do the noise pre-widening, so you don't need any additional scans. And finally, we have in OpenMRF a reconstruction based on the low-rank approach to get the subspace images, and with pattern matching, you get your parameter maps like T1, T2, or T1 row, or whatever you want. So in this image, I think you can see that this is intended to be an end-to-end solution, and I think this is quite successful in the meantime. And I will briefly sum up what key features OpenMRF has right now. So we have really modular readouts and preparations. We can automatically create sequence files for trajectory calibrations. We have a full support for triggers in Pulseq, so we can also use dynamic delays, which is important for cardiac MRF if you want to change the acquisition window on the scanner. Our dictionary simulation pipeline is also fully automatic, like in MR0. So we have a conversion of a sequence file. We simulate the real timings, so you cannot make any mistakes by hard coding. And we model lots of physical effects like slice profiles, adiabatic pulses, and so on. And in the reconstruction, you don't need to worry about any additional scans. You only need your Pulseq files. You don't need a scan for coil maps or for noise pre-widening. That's all inside our sec files. And thanks to Jesse Hamilton, we have a state-of-the-art low-rank reconstruction right now. So that's also all in the Git. We spent a lot of time to validate our framework. And basically, we did measurements on 0.5, 1.5, and 3 Tesla. And for this, we used the NIST calibration phantom. And we compared two sequences, a classical IR-FISP-MRF sequence for T1, T2. That's very close to what Dan Ma published in 2013. And we have a cardiac MRF sequence, which also models T1 row. And we compared the results to spin echo gold standard reference measurements. The results I will show now are measured on 3 different field strengths and at 3 different sites. And in total, we tested on 7 Siemens platforms. And I will just run through the sites. You can see here the IR-FISP MRF results for different field strength. I think you can see that this is a quite good image quality. Even the 0.5 Tesla scans look good. Of course, a little bit more noisy. And here are results for cardiac MRF. Can clearly see that we have slight bending artifacts for 3 Tesla in the T2 map. We have a bit more noise in T2 and T1 row for 0.5. And in principle, the 1.5 Tesla scans are mostly good. And here you can compare the results for 0.5 Tesla with the gold standard measurements. So we have a pretty good performance, not much deviations. This was only measured at one site and at one platform, because we only have one 0.5 Tesla scanner at the moment. And for 1.5 Tesla, you can see completely different sequences and different sites. And most of the relaxation times are matched very close to the gold standard measurements. And at 3 Tesla, we have a bit more problem, which is expected for T2. For example, it's difficult to model or to match very low or short T2 components. But yeah, the remaining results look good, I think. And we also did lots of in vivo tests right now. So here you can see scans at the 0.5 Tesla in the liver for T1, T2, and 1.5 Tesla scans in the heart. Here you can also see the T1 row examples, and finally also a 3T test in the brain. Maybe for you, it's interesting to know that our brain scans or IR-FISP sequence also has a 3D model. So if you're interested in 3D, you can use this right now. And we have also some ongoing projects on different vendors, for example, on the GE Signa, together with John. So if you want to know how exactly this works, check out John's repository. But in our Git, you can find examples on how to use OpenMRF for GE. And these are very recent measurements our first tests in a NIST Phantom at GE. So the IR-FISP sequence looks quite good. We also have results for the cardiac MRF version. And if you look closely, you can see that we have some artifacts here, but this is not because of the MRF sequence. It's more because we have an air bubble. So we need to repeat those scans. But I think it works very good for the first experiment. And also very interesting, I think, is we started a few weeks ago measuring on a United Imaging system at 5 Tesla. And this was sent to ISMRM as an abstract. We compared different sequences, and we also compared cardiac MRF with a Malcolm-Levitt T2 preparation, with a standard preparation, and with and without B1 modeling. So at 5 Tesla and also at 3 Tesla, it's very important to also model B1 plus. That was expected. It's all published in the literature, but you can see that our framework really is also able to match the B1 plus effect. Here you can see some results from the NIST Phantom at the 5 Tesla. So for the cardiac MRF with MLEF and with B1 plus modeling, we get quite good results. Not as good as 3 Tesla or 1.5, but the sequences are not yet optimized for 5 Tesla. This was simply porting 3 Tesla versions to the 5T, but in principle it works. And we also have some cardiac scans. And here you can clearly see that it works, but of course we have to improve it. The main problem is PTX and B1 plus inhomogeneities. But I think it's quite interesting to see that it's easy to port the sequences on different vendors with OpenMRF. And it took us only a few weeks to do that. Okay, we also have some future developments in mind. So the first is, of course, test on different vendors. Our validations were mostly based on Siemens platforms, but we want to go to Philips. We have, together with John, the option to measure on GE, and we also have United Imaging. We need to optimize, especially for 5 Tesla and maybe for Siemens 7 Tesla. And what we also want to do, and that's what I'm working on right now, is we want to introduce gradient rotation objects in our framework. So we want to switch to Pulseq version 151, because this will allow us to do more fancy trajectories in 3D, like cones or Seifert spirals. And this will be a major update of OpenMRF, maybe released in the next few weeks. And what we also have in mind is we need to further accelerate our simulation and reconstruction. The dictionary simulation is quite fast, but at the moment, the reconstruction part, which is the low-rank code of Jesse Hamilton, it still uses the MATLAB Fessler toolbox, which is slow compared to Python versions. So we will port some parts of the framework or maybe the whole framework also to Python. And we would like to develop an open source deep image prior reconstruction. This would also be really interesting, especially for 0.5 Tesla. And yes, OpenMRF will only be good if you guys help and give us feedback. So we would be very happy to receive comments. And if you have any ideas, you can contact me or Tom. So if you have ideas for new MRF sequences or for other forms of collaboration, just write an email or do this on the Git. And yes, thank you for your attention.
Great, thanks so much. Really nice.
I might add a tiny little comment. I'm Tom. I'm the other guy on this project. We also did set up a documentation website that is still kind of being built, but there's already a good amount of content on there. So if anybody's interested and wants to get started, please also feel free. If there is anything, like if you run into any issues or there is like an unanswered question that you think would help you to get started with this, then let us know, and we can add that to the documentation website. So that's also something where you guys can be of a great help, because I guess you guys are mostly to some extent you know a little bit about Pulseq, but if there's anything we can make better here that would facilitate getting started, that would be helpful. Thank you.
That's a lot of amazing work. Quick question. I guess the first question was for the reconstruction. That's also part of your open source toolbox, the reconstruction code and everything else. Yeah.
Yes, everything. So it's really end to end. You won't need to download any other package. If you download
And
OpenMRF, you have everything you need. And at the moment, it's below rank reconstruction.
yes, is it written in MATLAB or Python or
Everything is in MATLAB right now.
everything in MATLAB?
So we plan to do this in Python. For example, one of Maxim's PhD students right now, he did a great job porting sequence implementation parts already in Python. And we have one PhD student who accelerates the reconstruction with PyTorch. And we also want to do move on to deep image prior reconstruction.
I guess the second question was, where did you do the experiments for the United Imaging scanner?
The experiments were performed in Houston, Texas. But
Okay.
I've never seen an United Imaging scanner by myself.
Okay.
But I think that's the funny part of the world in which we are living right now. We can create the sequences and send them around, and people can run them. And it was very, very easy to do this with United.
Okay.
So I guess that the interpreter is pretty close to the Siemens version. We just had to change something like system raster times and keep in mind the gradient limits and so on. But yeah, that's the only
Okay.
part.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
So it's more difficult to work on GE at the moment because of the segment concept, and I think it's similar for Philips. But in our Git version, you can also find sequences which are already constructed for GE.
Wonderful. Amazing work. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, if I could ask a
Sorry, go ahead,
follow-up.
Jim.
Oh, yeah. If I could ask a follow-up question to the United Imaging question, I think you said during the presentation did you use the same sequence for 3T and 5T?
Not exactly. So
okay.
it's not possible to use exactly the same sequence file.
Mhm. Right.
Because you need to change for United the system gradient raster times, the RF raster times, and so on. But in our OpenMRF concept, you can define your scanners in a CSV file. And if you write in there the name United Imaging, it automatically detects that he has to change some things. So you can use the same MATLAB script at least. So you don't need to use completely new sequences in MATLAB. You just need to change your system struct, basically.
Okay. That's a really cool idea. It probably could be used for like a whole lot of other sequences as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I think this is maybe interesting for many here. Maybe not all of you are interested in MRF, but the framework which we built is not only for MRF, you can also do basic mapping experiments. And I think especially our metadata concept, and this is part of it, is interesting for you. So maybe I can show you this briefly.
While Max is looking for the files, I'm just gonna also add on that. So for example, single parameter mapping, which we also do like to compare, is also implemented here, and it uses the same idea. So if you acquire, for example, a T1 map with this framework, and you load in the data, you don't have to think about anything else. You don't have to like remember what inversion terms did I use or whatever. With the metadata concept, it's kind of loaded in the backend automatically, and allows you to get to maps pretty easily, just with the metadata that is stored.
I will briefly demonstrate this. So this is our basic MRF sequence, the RFSP sequence, for example. And here you can see that you can select different scanners, and GE is also included here. So if you run GE, the TRID labels are automatically set. You don't need to care about that. And if you set the flag backup to 1, this means that the sequence is generated, and we also write the sequence file to a specific folder together with all metadatas. And that's the result. Just give it a second. So here you can see that we use we define a specific Pulseq user for your lab, and we have timestamps. And now you can see that it created a new folder. Right. And here you can see all backups. So here's the sequence file, and here is something which we call our Pulseq workspace. Just let me show. And if you import this, you have all necessary sequence parameters and everything you need, including your k-space trajectory and so on. And I think this concept is also interesting, not only for the MRF community, because I think this is a big problem in Pulseq in general, that inside your raw data, you have no interesting sequence parameters like what repetition times, echo times were used, and so on, or mostly these are dummy parameters.
Just a quick comment. You mentioned TRID labeling for GE, and I think you had a nice concept for doing that. That's definitely still one of the hurdles for GE users, is just to sort of remember to do that. To native Epic programmers, you sort of do it implicitly, or you're forced to do it, but in Pulseq, you have to explicitly remember to do it there.
I think you were thinking about using this for your own repository. Did you already merge it or?
Ported, but I think the way you described it, seems kind of a general thing.
It was a few months ago, but so if you go to the main Git page, you can see that we have a folder with main sequences where you can find some examples, and we also have a folder with projects. And here's the OpenMRF validation, and here you can see GE, for example. So I will use those. And if we go to the basic MRF sequence, you can see, here it is. Yeah, what we do is, I will use, okay. So this is the sequence struct, which is which you can fill with sequence add block and so on. And if we want to set a new TRID label, we use a function. And this function gets the sequence struct and the TRID struct, which is at the moment, it should be nearly empty. These are the noise prescans that are already included. And for example, if I do that, I can, for example, add an inversion. And now it will create a new TRID label with inversion, and it will add it here. So it automatically detects if a TRID label was already used or not. And with this concept, it's a little bit easier to, if you have a complicated sequence with many preparations and readouts, and you have to define or split the readout in different TRIDs, this gives you the option to do this automatically, and you don't need to care about too much details.
So you don't have to manually keep track of the integer IDs.
So the magic happens right here, but it's a few months ago that I implemented it, and I'm not so in the GE game.
Okay. I think that's useful. I think we'll look at that and see if we can make that part of the general workflow.
All right.
I have a question about your workspaces and metadata. So do you rely on the signature on the hashes of the files? Okay.
Yes, also. So what we do is if you start Pulseq at the first time and you run the init script, that's here. And if you run this, all folders which you need are included. And it also asks you to give something like a Pulseq user. In my case, this is simply mgram. And it also asks you for a lab and something like that, and where you want to store your backup data. And what we do now is we have here a folder, and you can see all the Pulseq users of our lab. And we split the data, we sort it in users and then in times. And in the end, it's all structured automatically. And the MD5 hash is also used. If you import the data of a Siemens scan, the MD5 hash is compared, and we can see if we load the correct workspace data for a data set.
Okay.
And that would be cool if, for example, John is working on GE interpreters. If this concept works also for GE, that would be really cool to have the MD5 hash also included. So I think that's important to that the name of the sequence file and the MD5 hash is finally there.
In the raw data, right?
Yeah, in the raw data.
I wonder if this is somehow in the 5T United data also.
I don't know. The concept was I sent them sequence files.
Yeah,
and
but
they
maybe
sent
we
me a
can ping
complex
them.
set.
So
yeah,
it's a good point.
I don't know if other vendors have open source versions like mapvbd to load the data. GE also doesn't have open source solutions, and it would be great to have them. So Philips, GE, and United, yeah. I don't know if there are any open source repositories for loading raw data.
I actually wonder whether the hash would survive the conversion from the Siemens Twix to ISMR-MRD. Probably not. So we should also see that that's actually added to the standard converters, right?
We also thought about switching completely to the ISMRM standard, and maybe we will do this in the future. Makes definitely sense. But I think
because in this time you offload the conversion step to to the vendor.
Yeah.
But then of course we need a hash.
Sure. But I didn't try.
Well, and so thanks. I think in general it's really great work, and I have not a question but a comment. Namely, you referred many times to this famous Nature paper, and of course when it was first published back then, we also in our lab tried to reproduce it and basically failed. Nothing worked. So that was a point when we turned away from fingerprinting. I think that happened to many labs, and I think it's very indicative of how the absence of the open source dissemination prevents some ideas from being distributed and accepted in the community. So I think it's really great that you are, after all these years, that you have energy and courage to actually make it available. So I think it's great.
Yeah. I think an important point is really that different vendors also use different conventions for slice shape, for RF pulse shapes, for example, and that's really important for MRF. It makes a difference. So we need to simulate the slice profiles and everything. We need to simulate relaxation effects during adiabatic pulses. And if we use Pulseq, we can, we have the power to do that. And I hope that using open source tools helps for MRF.
So with that, a question to you, in the MRF world, there are a number of patents. Did you talk to the IP owners, or did they talk to you? Like any interesting comments with regard to that? What's your experience up to now?
Oh, we didn't think about patents at all in this project because we didn't do everything by ourselves. I think the most, the most work was to merge everything in one repository, and so not everything here is new, but it's a complete toolbox. I think that's important. So so I think basically our simulator, for example, is new. So because it really differentiates from MR0, but I think it doesn't make sense to think about a patent there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think Maxim's question is not patenting your work, but that patents exist for MRF. Like, how did you work around that problem? Because now you made it open source, right? But this is something commercially,
So I think we know a few people, especially in the Michigan lab, who are involved and they have patents and they didn't see a problem there. But I hope that you don't get a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we are suffering through the same issues, but I guess you solved it by having the patent owners already be involved in the project. As
Yeah,
long as
I
they
hope
don't
so.
complain.
Some of the patent owners are involved. I don't know, and I don't have the energy to look for all patents in the world. I hope we don't get a problem there because it's really a project which is intended to be open source. And
Yeah, that is true, but also concerning because
yeah, of course.
if they choose to complain, they could complain. And
Mm.
we've been also struggling with similar issues.
I'm a
We
big for
Then actually, I'm also just coming from a fairly naive kind of position here, but wouldn't that mean you couldn't do any MRF research?
Well,
You
no, you
can
could do
do
research, but
it,
you wouldn't be able to publish
share
your
it.
tools, right?
I
So
mean, yeah,
basically, you
but
can't
like,
share it. So,
Exactly.
well, let's put like the IP owners can prevent you from sharing,
okay. Well,
right? Because sharing is distribution and whatever, and then there may be licenses, fees, or they can at least try to enforce it.
well, I mean,
Then the question is whether you can convince them not to do that, or whether you have better lawyers or whatever. That's that gets into an interesting realm very quickly.
well, I mean, I guess two thoughts are we're not the very first people to put out open source solutions for MRF. Like there have been other parts of it that have not been as comprehensive, but like certain aspects have been I guess implemented in an open source way, and they're still online as far as I can see. And I guess the other thought is that this is like clearly non-commercial. Like this is a pure research implementation.
Well, but so the real I think we shouldn't be getting too deep into this discussion, not to scare people off, but theoretically they could say, it's of course your work is not commercial, so not making any money from it, any revenue, but you're probably preventing other people from buying their license because they can now use your tool for free. So at least some people can imply that you're reducing their revenues from the patent, at least potentially, and use that as a reason to require you to remove it. So I would say publish it quickly and see what happens.
Oh, yeah, it's a good comment, and I'll double check. I have good access to to many of the involved people.
Yeah, but I mean, in general, if you, it's really important to frame it properly. And I personally think, again, it's possible to convince people that showing that the tools are reproducible, the technology is reproducible and reliable, actually increases the value of the patent. So, by talking nicely to the people, you can convince them that's actually a good thing for them as well, because that basically creates more publicity around the technology. It shows that it can work if done properly. So I think in the long run, it's good. Again, they really make money on the clinical use, and our tools are not going into the clinic directly. They're just validating that whatever the methodology is behind it, that can be done and can be done repeatedly and reproducible. I think that's the strength of our position, and I think that's it's very hard to argue with it, but there still be some people who prefer to take the safer protectionist positions. Well, especially it's typically not the inventors themselves, but the tech, the administrations of the university, that tech transfer offices, which can be more difficult. So, yeah.
Good hint. I have one comment in this direction, but not for patents. We have a notice file on our repository. So we used many other open source frameworks. And if you have any problems with us copying some code, just contact us. And yeah, but the key features of OpenMRF were developed by ourselves. So things we copied were, for example, mapVBD scripts and something like that. That's an example.
In our case, we did something very similar. We got the color sequence, which is already implemented in different vendors, but in vendor specific ways. We put it on Pulseq. We showed that it's reproducible. then we asked fMRI is the company who holds the patent to it. And we said, oh, look, guys, we have this MRM paper. Can we share the sequence code? And they said no. Then now you have a reproducibility paper that doesn't have the sequence code available. It is on GitHub, but it's not public. So then we are kind of stuck in this weird place. Like, how does this help people if we're not able to share the code and the patent holders are?
Well, I think the
Not
best
happy
thing you
about
should do is you really have to openly discuss it and say to people,
Yeah.
that they didn't allow us to do it. So then after a while they will have a trouble to say they are research friendly, but don't allow researchers to use their patent. So
Now we have to ask from the author, upon reasonable request, like why should it be the case? I mean, we can still share it, but they don't let us share it publicly. That's unfortunate. Anyway, but excellent work. Thank you, guys. I think it's really outstanding. Maybe one researchy question for the liver MRF. How do you guys deal with the motion? Do you have any like XT type approach?
At the moment, this is a breath hold sequence.
Oh, breath hold.
But Tom is also working at the moment on a 3D version. So maybe Tom, you can say something about it.
Yeah, it's not so much me. I mean, this is like a general research that's happening in that direction, like free breathing MRF acquisitions in the abdomen. Gestalt Cruz, also from Michigan, for example, is working on that a lot. And there is work that you can find on those topics, some SMRM abstracts from previous years, for example. So you can basically combine fingerprinting. We usually do like a stack of spirals or a stack of rosettes, and then you can combine that with all of your motion compensation techniques, whatever you can think of. And obviously that makes the reconstruction even a bit more computationally intensive and on all those things. But generally, nothing speaks against combining fingerprinting with other motion compensation techniques. Those two things work well together, and it's been proven that it's doable. And within a few minutes, you can get a 3D acquisition. I guess so far we've mostly been looking into the actual sequence, because that's kind of like eventually it gets very broad, and this is kind of a different field of research that was not our main focus here. So we looked into the implementation and the reconstruction, and we've mostly been doing this for 2D acquisition, but the motion compensation aspect is not yet integrated. You can do 3D in the brain, for example, where you don't have motion compensation. But then that again is, I guess, is a point where if you have an idea of how to do motion compensation for 3D, then our idea would be you can take OpenMRF and make it better and go from there. But you don't have to go through all the kind of, because if you actually want to do something new, and that's what we found. I started my master's and tried to do something new in fingerprinting and ended up spending a year on getting fingerprinting running. And this is kind of this is kind of why we did this, because I feel like probably many people are in the same position, and you shouldn't have to re-engineer everything from scratch.
Yeah, this is
because it's a lot of moving parts. There's like the spiral imaging and the dictionary and the reconstruction. It's like all of them are solvable individually, but it adds up.
And for the 5T stuff, did you guys need to do anything for B1 plus, like adiabatic pulses and things like that?
Yes. So we redesigned the adiabatic pulses a little bit, but that was because of the maximum B1 we could transmit. So for the 3 Tesla system, for example, we had a BR4 pulse with 800 hertz limit, and that was not possible on the 5 Tesla. So I had to readjust the adiabatic waveforms. And finally, we use the B1 plus inside the dictionary to model the effect. So it's a parameter which is also matched, not very dense, only in, let's say, 2 or 5% steps. So the dictionary won't explode. But that's enough to differentiate between T2 effects and B1 plus effects, which look very similar for some sequences.
Yeah, and that only works if you use specific T2 preparations. Otherwise, if you just use the basic IR-FISP, for example, and don't have specific dedicated T2 preparations, B1 plus effects and T2 effects are going to look the exact same, so you can't really differentiate.
And also so the cardiac sequences work better on the 5 Tesla because they have more adiabatic pulses. and so they perform better for the preparations and everything. And the IR tends to fail on the 5 Tesla at the moment.
So BER4, you use it for T2 prep, I guess. In the original MRF sequence, you don't have a T2 prep module, right? It's just based on the...
Yeah, the original MRF sequence, or the Dan Ma sequence from 2013, was inversion recovery balanced FISP sequence. So I think that at least the inversion pulse was adiabatic, but that's all.
Yeah, we found that for many of these more specific or specialized applications, using even if it's not a cardiac application, a CMRF type sequence often does a better job. So we interleave your requisition with dedicated magnetization preparations. For T1 row, you have to do it anyways, but even for T2, you often get a better encoding, especially when the kind of physical conditions are a bit more tricky. You might get more robust results using dedicated additional magnetization preparations that you just interleave in the same way you would for a CMRF acquisition.
Yeah, we are struggling at 70. That's why I was curious, like how you guys tackle it. So. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, we went a bit over time. Yeah.
Well, I think we're really quite a bit over time, but it was so shame to interrupt the discussion. Although I think quite a few people have left who have other obligations. Yeah, I think we see that there's a lot of interest and many topics to discuss. We really appreciate your contributions, and
Just
we need to keep going.
We need a second speaker for the next meeting, so we're aiming for February 6th then, if there are no objections. So let's plan on that.
Yeah, and we might bug some of the attendees more directly if there's no volunteers.
We'll volunteer you. All right, great seeing everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.